Welcome to episode 1 of the Barely Indian podcast. You're laughing. They're going to see this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like this is good that I'm laughing. It's genuine.
That's true. Okay. We'll
do
do it again. Welcome to welcome to episode 1 of the Barely Indian podcast. I am your host, Jerome and I'm here with my co-host, Neesh Patel, and we are your Barely Indian boys.
All right. Well, we're BIB.
Yeah.
You really want to go with the acronym BIB?
BIB, Barely Indian Boys. Right. That's a good acronym.
Yeah, I guess we're BIB now. It's fine. Let's go. All right, what are we talking about today?
But so we wanted to make
August
this podcast.
17, year is 2025. We're coming at you. COVID has gotten rid of 75% of the population.
None of that
and only the Indian have survived, and here we are trying to repopulate.
As 2 boys, okay. None of that was accurate. We wanted to make this podcast from the perspective of 2 Indians living in America. I moved here when I was like 6, so I'm an immigrant, but Neesh was born here. But we have a lot of Indians still in us. Well, barely. So I wanted to just talk about, how we felt growing up. Let the people know. You know what I mean?
All right, let's go. What's the first one?
Today, specifically, I want to talk about, the Indian community and how did you ever feel like pressure growing up to be a certain way or act a certain way?
So yes, but most of my pressure came from my parents. I didn't get pressure from society, if that's what you're getting at. Yeah.
So I feel like mine was the exact opposite. My parents were super laid back and didn't really care what I did, but I felt like all of my expectations came from the outside world. Okay, so I grew up in Maryville, Knoxville, right? And in Knoxville, there's a pretty, I'm not going to say large, not like New York City, but there's a decent sized Indian population there. And I feel like a lot of my pressure to be good came from the surrounding community. They were always, no one ever came up to me and was like, oh, you're Indian, you have to be the smartest one. But I just felt that, I was like, oh, I have to be the smartest one in class. I have to be good at math. I have to be good at science. And I don't know, did you not feel that?
I felt it from my parents. I wasn't necessarily going into school and being my friends think I need to be the smartest. Of course, but here's the difference between you and me, right? I would say you're more American than I am, even though I was the one born here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd agree with that.
Because just the way your dad held that traditional job, right? He worked at a company, did all this other stuff, and more or less lived the American dream, provided for your family, right?
Yeah.
And he knew English and he did born and raised South India, right? And then you guys moved to Japan as little kids and stuff like that when he started his career, and then eventually moved to Maryville, where you guys you literally lived there, and then you went to UT, which is right next door.
Yeah.
And you were there, you had one group of friends, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
My parents moved in. They were in Chicago with. My dad had 5 brothers. They immigrated in. They lived in one apartment, saved a bunch of money. This is starting from bare bones, coming into the country, not knowing a lot of English, not knowing a lot of people, things like that, and literally kind of doing the American dream in a different perspective, I guess.
Right.
But working at Dunkin', and my dad was a typical Indian taxi driver sort of thing,
Really?
Yeah.
In Chicago? I didn't know that.
In Chicago, yeah. He drove taxi for a while, dude. But
dang, I didn't know that.
The pressure was more from my parents, because they were we've sacrificed all this much so we could have more. They didn't say this out loud, obviously, but they were we moved here so that our kids could live a better life. Yeah. So here's the expectation. And even growing up, we would play and be kids and stuff like that. But come time that my parents saved enough money to own their own business, it was all right, child labor doesn't exist. Yeah. Get your ass to work.
Right.
So it was we had a store in Georgia. I would get home from work as a kid, stock the coolers. We had a hotel in Iowa. We would get home from school and make like clean sheets, like fold sheets or like clean rooms and stuff like that. So there was always like work to be
Really?
done at
Dang,
this
I didn't know
family
that.
business after coming home from school. Like in high school, I got home at like 3 or 4. The store was 5 minutes walk from the school, and I would literally work from like 3 or 4 till 11. I would go home with my dad. Like here's the thing. As far as education goes, when I graduated high school, I would sleep every day in class and still make A's because the system was so bad. Like the public
Yeah.
school system was just poor. Um, so I never got the pressure of excelling from my like classmates academically because I just did. And it wasn't because like I was some like genius or whatever. It was just I was put in the situation of not a lot of smart kids just of the way like they grew up and like the school system they grew up in. And I've been all over the place, so I had experienced the good and the bad.
Yeah. So let me ask you
And
this. Did you have like, so you've lived in a bunch of different places. You said you started off in Chicago, then, you guys lived in Iowa for a little bit, Georgia for a little bit, and then Memphis lastly before, I met you in Knoxville. In all those different places, like, did your parents have a bunch of Indian friends that they would hang out with that like, you would also hang out with like their friends or sorry, not their friends, their friends' kids or stuff like that? Or was it really just like mainly just your family?
um Chicago, yes. And then like Missouri. We lived there for a year and we hung around a lot of Indian people. But other than that, not really. But like, I think I know where you're going with this. I think you're about to say like, oh, did you hear that so and so's kids got into like med school and like why can't you be more
Yes.
like them and like shit like that?
Yes.
So like, I understand where you're going, and to me it was like they brought that up and it was like, well, cool, good for them. Like I never really cared. Like they said it and like I picked up on it, but it was more of like I guess they were trying to bring it up so like it would initiate some like internal drive in me to want to do better than that person.
Right.
But like I genuinely didn't know these people. So I was
Right.
like, I don't care to be better than people that I don't know in a
Yeah,
way.
because for me it was like, again, my parents would never be like, you have to do the best. I guess the closest I get to that is like, you know, when I was growing up, like younger, I would get like, I don't know, like 100 on like a test, and there would have been like a bonus question for like 5 points, and I would take it home with my mom, and I'd be like, "Mom, look, I got 100," and she'd be like, "Why didn't you get 105?"
Yeah,
you know, like
that's the
something like that would
classic
happen.
stuff, right?
But really, more so, I felt like I felt pressure from other parents who would be like, "Oh, well, my son's doing the," and again, I want to clarify, like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like competition is not a bad thing.
No.
And instilling like drive in other kids is not a bad thing. But yeah, I felt like it would be like, "Oh, well, my son did this. What is it that you're doing?" Stuff like that. And I'd be like, "Man, why does it matter? Why does it matter what I'm doing? You do you and I'll do me."
Yeah.
you know?
It was yeah, but like that's weird because like I never had like aunties or whatever you want to call them, right?
Yeah.
Come up to me and be like, "Yo, my son's doing all these great things. How come like it never came off like that, right?"
Yeah.
Um, it was more so like like I said, it was just for my parents because like my sister always excelled at school. She was like an overachiever. Um,
Yeah, I've heard that she's better than you.
yeah, in every which way. So um,
She's a doctor,
she's
so
5 years older than me, right?
successful.
Well, like she's 5 years older than me, right? So like when my parents were seeing what she was doing in high school, I was still in middle school, and they were
Yeah.
like, "Well, these are all the mistakes that we've seen your sister make, and like these are scores that she made, and this is how hard it was for her to get into schools, and we saw that from her.
Right.
Now use that knowledge and do something with it. Like use what she failed at so you can do better." And I was like, "I'm gonna play video games." So like I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I was playing video games and my dad or my mom walked into my room, and this was when I guess my sister was already in college, but they were like, um, "You need to study for the ACT. Your sister got a 28, like, and blah blah blah." And I was like, "I don't even know what the ACT is." Like,
How
I
old were
was just
you?
like
Or what grade were you in?
freshman.
Freshman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's starting
Like,
early.
I knew what it was, obviously, but I was
Yeah.
like, I don't even know where to begin to study because, like, the situation, like, obviously, like, I could start with math. Like, I always been, like, good at math, right? And I was like, that would be where I would start. But I was like, I don't want to. Like, it
Yeah.
never occurred to me, like, I never had the, I guess, extra drive to go out and study and learn stuff just to learn stuff. I had to be put
Right.
in the situation to be like, okay, this is what you need to do because if you don't, you're going to fail this. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, then I'll learn it. Yeah, because I don't
Yeah.
want to fail. But if someone was like a standardized test, that's why I hate every single standardized test. I'm very bad at them and I hate studying for them and everything because it's like, I understand the goal of like getting into the next step and you have to do well on this test to be able to get accepted so you can move on and build yourself and whatnot. But this sense of like, you could learn this information and then it just not even be on there. Like, I
Yeah,
never liked that.
that's true.
So, but I
Also,
feel
I
like
just want to
I'm,
point out that you put your sister on blast by just letting everyone know what she got on the XCT.
I mean, so that's the thing. Like, um, she was born in India, right? And then she immigrated here
Yeah.
when I think she was maybe, I don't know how old she was, maybe like first grade or something like that.
Yeah.
So she
It's like
always
me.
studied her ass off, but like 28 is not a very good score, right? We can all agree. Like, it's a good score, but it's no like 30 or 36. You know,
Right.
like
There
everyone
there'd be
says
a
like
lot
above a
of
30 is like,
there'd be a lot of aunties and uncles that would be really upset with a 28.
dude, my dad did not talk to my sister for like a solid 2 weeks because she got a 28. Like, he was that like it went to the point that his friend's daughter, like, he told my dad that his daughter made a lower score than my sister for
Yeah.
my dad to be like, oh shit, my kid's actually like not that
She's
bad.
doing okay.
Yeah. He had to have
That's so
that,
funny.
like, it's that comparison, you know? He
Yeah.
had to have that comparison to be like, oh shit,
But
it's all
like
good.
I feel like that's a big thing for Indian parents, right? Like test scores cuz obviously like I didn't go to school in India,
Because
so I
that's all.
don't know. Right. I didn't go to school in India, so I don't know. But from the stories I hear, it's like, you literally go to school, you come home, you study, 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 and then you get a good grade on your test. And that's like decides whether you're like a decent human being or not, is your test
Well, like,
score.
I think in India it's different. I think if you want to do a certain profession, you have to score a certain like score on a test to be even allowed to do that profession.
Right.
Like, if you want to be an engineer, you have to get to the engineer level. If you want to be a doctor, obviously you might have
Right.
to score higher. I don't know
And
the exact
and
format of
for
it.
for the population being 1.3 billion or whatever it is now, like it makes sense. Like you have to essentially be a certain level of competency before you're even allowed to try to be a certain profession, right? But for
Yeah.
us growing up in America, it's like you have all of the expectations of you have to do super well to get into engineering or whatever, for our case, but you also have like the American leeway of do whatever it is that you enjoy. Like, do you think if we grew up in India, would we be able to come home from school and sit on the TV and play video games?
Heck no, because they don't have
Yeah,
internet.
100%. Oh my gosh.
sorry,
No,
sorry.
but yeah, apologize to everyone watching right now who's watching using internet in India. But no,
sorry,
yes, you're
Jerome's
right.
mom.
But you're right. Like we wouldn't have the option to do that. Cuz like summers when I go and visit India, right? And you can tell me about your experience too. I'll go and like my cousins will literally they'll come home from school and then like get like a snack or something and then they'll leave and go to like a tutor and study for another 4 hours and they come home and they go outside and like play cricket for a couple hours or whatever and then they go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I would hate that. Is that what you see when you go to India?
I mean, my I think you have more family in India than I do, right?
Maybe. I don't
First,
know.
the last time I went to India 3 times since fifth grade. So one time went in fifth grade, and a lot of us from the U.S. went. A lot of us that were around the same age
Yeah.
went, and we didn't really know. Like, we were pretty much just unaware of like how it really was in India, right? We were
Yeah.
oblivious to the fact. Like, we were like, oh, we have it good. Everyone else must have it good too, right? You don't
Yeah.
hear about like you don't learn about all this stuff. But like we went over there, and our cousins that we had, they were still in school and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I would see it, but also the cousins that I had were did not enjoy school. So
Yeah.
they had the tutors and stuff like that, but like academically they didn't do well, and they would one of them would get out of it, and another one I think wasn't in school at the time when we went. So like he would make any kind of excuse to get out. I think one day he told the teachers that his stomach was hurting or like he was feeling sick. So like my aunt had to go pick him up, and then
Yeah.
he got home and he started playing with us. And my aunt was livid. She
Dude,
was so pissed.
I used to do that all the time. So like I used to go to Japanese school, right? So when we moved here, we moved from Japan and like I didn't know any English. And so I knew Japanese, and so my parents put us in this Japanese school to like help us make friends and stuff like that. And eventually, like after years and years and years of doing that, we would we'd go to like regular school Monday through Friday and then Japanese school on Saturday. And I hated it because I was like, well, all my other friends are, sleeping in and like playing and stuff on Saturdays, but I have to go to school again. And so I would lie and fake so many like diseases to get out of going to school. Like anything I could do to get out of going to Japanese school, I would do. And
I feel like you would have said the opposite thing. I feel like you would have said you hated going to like the American school
no,
because you didn't know English and everything.
well, I'm talking about after I learned English. It didn't take me long, like, because so for me, I was 6, and so I was starting first grade.
Oh, okay,
And
that's
like,
not bad.
yeah, like, how much English does a first grader know? Not a lot, other than
Yeah,
they
yeah,
know how to speak. So like, it didn't take me a long time to catch up to my age group.
yeah.
So by third grade, maybe I was like fully caught up, and I was just doing regular school like I would. And so by then I was like, man, I hate going to Japanese school. The only reason I would go to Japanese school would be to like play soccer during recess. And then
Well,
it got so bad that eventually like the teachers even gave up on me. Cause like I didn't know like kanji and stuff. And so it would get to the point like when I was like a freshman in high school, there were only 6 of us in the class, and they would give out the test, and my teacher would hand me the test, and I would say, yeah, I don't know how to do any of this. And she would just literally just take the test from me and say, okay, just don't bother anyone. And I would just sit there with my head down on my desk and just like sleep. Yeah, like as good of a student as I was in regular school, I was 100% the exact opposite at Japanese school. I was terrible. If you could
it's
give
because
us,
you weren't like getting graded. Like,
yeah, I didn't care. Like
yeah,
because everyone there was the reason they were doing it was because they were eventually going to move back to Japan, you know.
yeah,
But for me, I knew I was going to stay here, so I didn't care.
yeah.
But I don't know.
But no, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like going back to like our original topic here, I don't think just because you got a lot of pressure from like family and stuff like that, which I don't think American kids, their aunts and uncles were as blunt or would be as blunt in being like, oh, my son's doing this. What are you doing to be active and blah, 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 blah. So I think from that perspective, you probably got more pressure. But like from me, I didn't get that pressure from um, other family members. My parents gave it to me mostly, but I feel like even if like there are probably like American kids out there whose parents are like, "Hey, you need to do well on the ACT if you want to
Yeah,
do whatever you want to do." So I feel like my experience isn't really that far fetched from like regular the average American kid or whatnot. So I feel like I don't really have like an Indian perspective or whatever on this, other than the
but
fact
take
there were like
take
special
even
circumstances. But
take even like high school. Okay, were you I'm assuming there weren't a lot of Indian kids at your high school. Like you were probably either the only one or like a handful, right?
Yeah.
Did the other kids were they not like, oh, look at Neesh, like he's gonna be the best in this math class, so we're gonna go get help from him?
I mean, they didn't say that because I was the best.
What'd you get on your ACT? What'd you get on your ACT?
Dude, I don't want to talk about it. I made like a 30-something on the math and sciences.
Okay,
what
my
overall, reading was.
You put your sister on blast. What'd you make on the ACT?
I wasn't even putting my sister on blast. I was just letting you know, like shit. My parents were like, "Hey, Ruby was 28. You need to do the same thing." So I was like,
what did you get? And what did you
I'm gonna
get?
preface. I think I made like a 35 on the math, like a
Whoa,
34.
hold up. You just said 30 something, and then that became a 35?
Shut your face. Like a 35 on the math, like a 34 on the science. Homeboy made an 18 in the reading.
Oh my God.
And then like a 20, like a low 20 in the English section. So like overall, I think I made like a 25. That 18, man, just destroyed me.
Oh my God, dude. So
like it makes sense, right? I don't know how to read. I don't like all the.
The one that was born in America doesn't know how to read.
Touche.
Okay, sorry. Go back to what you were saying.
What was I saying before you rudely interrupted me?
I think you were talking about like kids coming to you for help with math. Like the expectation of high school kids.
So like all the examples I'm going to give are going to be from the last. Because I went to 3 different high schools, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give all the examples from the last high school because I mean that's where just most of it is fresh. I walk into this like algebra class sophomore year, or I don't even know what it was, algebra. And the way it was in my old school, you had semesters, right? So you would have the same class for a year. But it was broken out in 2 semesters, and you would have 7 to 8 classes
That's
a day.
How we did it.
But the new school I went to had like block schedule or something like that.
That's how we did it.
But either way, it was something different like that. So my second semester at the third school, they were starting from square one, right? First time seeing this material. I'd already been through half of it, right? So essentially I wasted first semester of my sophomore year because I had to relearn, like I had to sit in class and relearn everything or like sit through it while everyone else was learning it. So like I walked in and I was like, teacher was doing stuff and I was like, well, can you do this instead? And she was like, we'll get that next week, right? It was something like some matrixy stuff.
You were that
kid, right? I was like coming in, I was like, math is the only thing I know. Screw everything else.
You're like, actually, Mrs. Johnson.
Shut up. Her name, I don't even know her. I can't remember her name. But it was like matrices or something. So I was like, wait, can you just plug it into the calculator and do the inverse matrices and get the right answer? And she was like, yes. And then it was fine. But I wasn't very talkative. I was to a new school, right?
Yeah.
I was very shy. Still kind of am, but I never went out of my way to like talk to people or anything like that. So I was in band, and the people that I talked to in our math class were the people that were in band with me, and I sat with them. And then there was one girl that was in band, and then I sat with the friends that she had around her, and that was the group of friends I had. And usually I would find that group of friends in every class, and I would have someone from band that I would talk, like sit with, and like those are people I would hang out with. We always had like the popular kids on one side, and like I don't know what kind of group of kids, like average kid, I guess. That's not like the band nerd or the popular crowd on the other side. We were in the middle. So I didn't have the expectation of like, hey, this guy walked in, he's brown, he must be good at math, like he's gonna be the best, we're gonna go to him for help. Did I help the friends, like the people that I talked to and stuff? Yeah, but like it wasn't like I didn't feel pressure. I liked to help them. I enjoyed helping them understand the topics and like teaching them and stuff like that. But I didn't feel pressure to like do the best from my classmates. If I screwed up, I screwed up.
What was like the stereotype though? Did you deal with like any stereotypes?
I mean, not towards like this is West Tennessee, and for those of you that don't know West Tennessee, it's not thriving academically. So all of my bullying or whatever you want to call it um, didn't come from the academic. Like no one was like, "Oh, you're brown, you're gonna be good at math. Haha, you're funny." So we're gonna make fun of you. It was like racism and stuff like that. That it was just dumb, you know.
Yeah.
It was like,
What
"Oh,
about
you're."
what
Go
about
ahead.
when you graduated from high school and then went to UT? Was that like a different story at that point?
No, because I was dumb at UT. Dude, if
Oh
I could
my gosh.
redo.
Dude, all the
So
aunties and
think about
uncles,
it.
they're
Think
like
about it. Like
they're
I
telling their kids
went.
to turn this off right now. They're like, "Don't
It's
be like this
fine. They
guy."
can. And then they'll turn it off and they'll come back at night and watch us because we're amazing. And we'll learn a couple of things. But like I slept there. I told you earlier, like I slept every day in high school, right?
Yeah.
So like I took that into college. I was like, man, I'm just gonna like goof off in college and I'm gonna do super well. And let me tell you, it did not happen. And
Right.
because like I slept every day in high school, I didn't even know how to ask questions about things I didn't understand, right? Um, because I got to college and obviously I didn't understand things, but I didn't even feel comfortable raising my hand and asking the professor to be like, hey, can you rewind and go through that a little bit slower so that I can understand it, or like just things like that. So
Yeah.
I put in the time, I did the homework and things like that, but when it came to test time, I was very bad.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this before, but like if I could go back and redo my like first 3 semesters, I would have graduated UT with like a 3.9 or something like that
Yeah.
because my first 2 semesters were like I was in the twos, man. It was bad.
Oh no, dude. Again, like I said, so many people, so many aunties and uncles just turned this off. They
Yeah,
said, "Nope, don't listen to this guy."
but it was weird. It was like a learning experience because that was like the first time where I was like, okay, this isn't gonna fly. This isn't high school anymore, right? And like all the professors or teachers or whatever warn you in high school is like, hey, college isn't gonna be like this. I'm not gonna give you extra time to do stuff. And like time was never the reason why I did poorly. It was just I didn't know how to study, and
Yeah, okay. And
I just didn't know those things.
on the flip side of that, I actually have a very similar experience because even though like so in high school, like again, like you were saying, I did really well and I never had any issues, especially in like math and science. Like I, very rarely studied outside of just doing my homework, you know, like whatever homework I had, I would do it, I'd finish it. But if I had like a test coming up, I wouldn't necessarily like sit down and study the material for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and so then I get to UT and, I went to a high school that at the time they were like, ranked in Tennessee. They were, I don't remember what the number was, but I don't know, in like the top 20 high schools in Tennessee. And so they were always telling us like, oh, don't worry when you get to college. You went to Maryville, so you're already going to be so far ahead of everyone else. And, you get told that so many times that you start to believe it. Right. And so I get to UT and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so easy. Like, I'm doing the honors program. And so you remember that engineering fundamentals class?
yeah.
So I took honors and first first exam, I made a 64. I literally failed it. And it was because I had done everything the same way as I would have in high school. Like I did all my homework. Night before the exam, I like looked over a couple of practice problems or whatever, go to the test. Nothing is like anything that I remember. I don't think so. They gave a ton of partial credit. I don't think I got a single question right on that exam.
Yeah, that's usually how it was though.
And so I was like, I literally came back to my dorm room and was like in tears, like crying because I was like, I'm stupid, you know? And
See, that's your experience.
it's like going back to that same thing we were talking about. Like the expectation is so high. I get to my dorm room with this test paper, and I'm like, I have to call my mom and tell her that I got a 64 on this exam. I'm like, I
Jesus,
gotta tell my
man.
mom that I failed. And
Did you?
I think so. And I think she was pretty
Wow.
mad. I think she was pretty mad. But so then after that, I was like, okay, well, clearly I don't know how to study, so I need to learn how to study. and it took me forever. The next exam, I literally like locked myself in my room and I studied for like, I don't know, like 12 hours straight, like without moving. And then I went and took the exam and I got like an 86 or something, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so not worth it. But I didn't know what else to do. So every test there on out, I just sat there and studied for 12 hours straight. And
See, I
eventually,
feel like
eventually I figured
that's
it
funny.
out, but it
See,
was
I feel
miserable.
like I didn't have that switch flip until like after sophomore year, first semester
Yeah,
sophomore year. I literally got back and forth my first EF exam, and I can't remember what it was. It was awful, right?
yeah,
And they let us redo the stuff and get like half credit. So like I ended up doing like my final grade for the first test. It was all right,
yeah.
but I came back and I was like, well, I did poorly. Time to play video games.
So
I didn't. So for me, college was very hard because I had a hard time making myself study because I was like, okay, I've done the homework. I feel
yeah.
like I know everything, and then I would just be like, okay, that's good enough, and then I'd go into exams and I'd bomb them, so it'd be fine. But like, what for me it was like I really enjoy once I got like a solid group of friends and we were all study together. That was when it excelled for me.
Yeah.
Like I would have a very hard time making myself like lock myself into a room and do it. But if me and you were like studying together and I saw you studying, I'd be like, all right, I need to study
Yeah.
because there's something and like working through problems together and stuff like that. But like by myself, I'd be like, screw that. Time to play video games, hang out
So
with
then
friends, fun
what
stuff.
what made like the switch finally flip?
And grades are dog shit, dude. So here's the thing. I think after my sophomore year, I was probably below a 3, still like a high 2
Yeah.
maybe, but still below a 3.
Yeah.
And God behold, I don't know how, but your boy got a co-op,
Dang, where at?
John Deere in Greenville.
All right. So
And
everyone
I think the
listening,
only reason,
John
the
Deere.
only reason, the only reason I got that co-op was because they took forever to get back to you. So I
Really?
feel like all the kids that were like they really wanted
The smart
got
kids?
taken by other companies. Yeah, they got taken by other companies. So they were like, this guy did all right in the interview, and he was good to talk to and stuff like that. And they were like, that's all. He's really all we got left. So I guess we'll take him. But and to me, I was like, hell yeah, I'll take that. But um, after I got that co-op, I was like, I think junior and senior year, our average probably like a 3.9.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
really
that's really good.
after that, but like I don't know, like I never felt pressure to do what I want. Obviously, like I don't think engineer. Like I did engineering, but I'm not like, oh, I love engineering. I don't go into work. Like I go into work and I'm like, oh, I love my job. I don't say that. No, that's not true. That's not very true. But I wanted to do some type of business, but my sister convinced me to do a more technical, like sciencey type degree
Yeah.
because she had the knowledge of like, hey, you could always go back and get your MBA and then do some business type stuff later if that's what you wanted. And the combination of engineering and business is just really good. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And like, I got through engineering and I'm like, I got to have 2 years of experience after graduating college. And I think in a couple of years I'll get my MBA and then I'll actually be able to do something that I want to do. So
Yeah.
I think it'll work out in the end. But I do think that if I could have had my own way without having like family tell me, hey, you should do this, then I definitely would have done a business degree
Yeah.
and probably would have been in a job, maybe not making as much money, but I honestly wouldn't have cared because I don't know. I just find business more fascinating and stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, I agree with you.
But like the pressure of that kind of pressure of parents and like my sister telling me, hey, you should do this because I think it's a smart move. Like, yeah, you're probably right. So I did it. But I mean, growing up, like, you know how Indian parents are like, oh, you got to be a doctor. You're going to be
Yeah.
a failure if you're not a doctor. Like, not even engineering. If you're not a doctor, you're a
Yeah.
failure.
No,
Like, you have two
it's
things. You can either like, we'll ship you back to India or you're going to be a doctor. There's no
yeah.
there's nothing in the middle. There's no lawyer, no like engineer. I think that mindset of Indian parents has has developed in the past couple of years to where they're okay with their kids doing whatever they want as long as they're happy and all this stuff. So like imagine like the next generation of Indian kids, like they're gonna be, I don't even know, dude. I'm afraid of that.
So that's another weird thing because, like, for me, my parents always said, like, do what makes you happy. But again, at the same time, I always, in the back of my mind, I had that feeling of like, well, okay, I have to be either an engineer or a doctor,
Yeah.
And that's why I keep going back to like, I feel like I felt that pressure from like just the general overall Indian community of like, you have to be an engineer or a doctor. And yeah, kind of like to reiterate what you just said, it's not even engineer. You have to be a doctor. Because like, I feel like I've been in so many social situations where being an engineer as an Indian just like doesn't cut it. It's like not impressive enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know, I'm not to the point where I literally like I don't care what other people think. So
yeah. I mean, you have to, right? You just like being an Indian American person in America, I think you have to. You just have to get to that point where you want to pursue what it is that you want to do.
yeah,
And
I just think it's funny too because like my parents would always say like, oh, so and so's kid is scored a 34 in their ACT, and you need to do this, that, and the other. But they would never talk about the kid who did worse than you, right?
yeah, that's true.
Like that kid doesn't exist, right?
Yeah,
Because
my
I had
parents
plenty
didn't
of
bring
cousins
you up.
growing up. All right, bud, shots fired. We'll come back to this in 5 years and see who's ahead. But no, like it was never like I had cousins that didn't excel academically, so but my parents never brought them up. And like when me and my sister would, it would be like, oh, you really want to end up like them? You keep bringing it up. You really want
Yeah.
you really want to like do poorly, and then like,
That's true.
what's your argument to that as like a kid in high school? Like, no,
You're like,
but like at the same time, like I'm doing all right. So can you just like let me be and let me play these video games and do what I want to do? Like mom, dad, if you're watching, you're probably not because you don't know how to work the internet. If you let me play video games instead of badgering me to do good on the ACT, which I didn't do anyway, homeboy could have been making millions on Twitch right now.
All right, so that's what you want to do with your life. You want to be a Twitch streamer.
Dude, I'm just saying it would have been nice because freshman year I was like I would play video games because like freshman year was when my parents didn't have a business or anything, so like I didn't have to go work after school, so I would literally come home from school and then do my work. And honestly, I would do my classwork in classes in like different classes, so like I didn't do them, wouldn't have to do them at home. So I would come home and literally like play video games for probably like 5-6 hours a day.
Yeah.
To the point, and I would be playing Call of Duty, and I got pretty freaking good because, like, I don't know if you played Modern Warfare 2, but a nuke is 25 kills, and I would get nuked fairly often. So, like, I'd say I'm pretty good. But
I've not played Modern Warfare 2. I played a lot of FIFA in high school.
I missed out, man. Missed out on making millions on Twitch is all I'm saying. I could have
we could have.
If they would have just Fortnite. Like instead of buying me a $200 ACT prep book, they could have bought me a $50 game capture card, and it would have paid dividends. I'm talking like way. I would have been retired by now. I've been so good.
Oh my god, you could have been the Indian ninja.
Dude, we hate ninja. Ninjas is nothing.
Why do we hate Ninja? What's the deal? I thought he
we
came
don't.
back to Twitch.
Like everyone hypes him up, and I don't think he's that like. I feel like he's good at video games, but like his streaming, like personality and stuff like that. Everyone always says like he's not the best streamer.
It doesn't. Didn't he blow up because he like played Fortnite with Drake or something like that?
That was like a couple of years ago, bro.
Yeah,
that was when we were still in college.
I'm saying that's how he blew up.
That's not how he blew up. Drake just doesn't randomly message you and be like, you want to play Fortnite? You have already had to have blown up for Drake to message you. You don't blow up. Like, I'm sure he like that escalated it a little bit, but Drake's not going to be like, yo, we're like this nobody. Hey, you want to play some Fortnite? That's not going to be the case. He's already a big name.
Speaking of Drake for a second, hold on. Have you heard that new song? What's it called? Like Only You Freestyle? I don't know. It's the one that he did recently. You haven't heard it. He goes like full Arabic in that song, dude. Like he literally speaks in Arabic.
You sure it's not someone else?
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm positive it's Drake. Go watch the music video.
Okay. All right.
It's weird, but I don't know. Enough about Drake and enough about Ninja. You can still go stream on Twitch if you want to.
No,
You,
man.
you
Like
work
now
way
it's just
too
too
much
much.
for that.
Like exactly. Now it's like I don't. I probably like if I really wanted to, I could come home from work and then like play video games for like 5-6 hours. But now it's just like not as enjoyable as it was back in the day. Like now it's
Why?
like I'd rather. I don't know. Now it's like I'd rather play video games while I'm talking to friends and like just
Yeah.
talking while I'm playing video games. I don't want video games to be the prime thing I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just
It's a
priorities.
different part. So like, yeah. So, but like back in the day, I didn't really have a lot of friends because we just moved to like a new city again freshman
Yeah.
year. So I was like, okay, I'll just go home and play some video games. And I also learned like freshman year was when I learned there's such a thing as online gaming. I plugged in the Ethernet in the back of my PS3, and I was like, what is this? I've missed out on this like so long.
Dang,
But
dude. You didn't
yeah.
ever play like PC games like RuneScape or whatever?
No. This is the only reason why we had computer, right?
Yeah.
And I was such a naive kid because I logged on to RuneScape, and if you logged on to RuneScape and tried to create an account, it asks you if you were over 18, and I was like, I'm not over 18. I'm hitting no.
Oh,
So I hit no.
no.
I hit no, and it like saves it, right? You can't like X out the browser and then go back into the browser.
Yeah.
It like saves that computer's
Cookies,
like
man.
IP address or
Cookies.
something like. Yeah, whatever it is. Like I wasn't smart enough back in the day to figure it out, so I was like, man, I can't play RuneScape anymore. So like I did, right? And it was fine. But yo,
That's
the
hilarious.
pinball. You remember before the internet was big and you had that pinball game?
Like on Windows XP?
Yeah, we played the mess out of that.
Dude, kids nowadays don't even know what that is. They're like
they need to.
busy
It's the
playing
best thing
Fortnite.
ever. Yeah, it's okay.
I
12-year-olds
wish,
making money off Fortnite. It's fine.
yeah.
Not bitter.
I mean, I wish I could go back and just be like, look at me now, mom and dad. Like my engineering degree didn't make me millions as the inventor of Fortnite.
Yeah, we're also 24 and 25. Well, you're 24.
I'm not 24 yet. Thank you very much.
Jeez.
By the time this podcast comes out, I probably will be 24. But I'm gonna do a special birthday video, and I'm gonna eat a ghost pepper.
I actually ate a Carolina Reaper at work on a Saturday.
Hold up! What do you mean accidentally?
My coworker was like, "Yeah, it's a habanero." So I was like, "Oh, I've had a habanero before. They're not bad." But it was on a weekend, and there's this guy downstairs who works in like purchasing or whatever, and he has a garden, and he brings in peppers and stuff like that as excess for people to grab whatever they want. So we went down there and we just grabbed some peppers, and the guy I was working with that Saturday, he said, "Yeah, I'll just like snack on these. I'll bite in on them. They're not too bad." And so I was like, "Oh, that seems like a challenge." So like I stood at my desk and I was like, "Well, if he says he's gonna do it, obviously I'm not gonna let this man one up me." So I take a bite out of this pepper, dude, and he's like, after I'm done like crying and just like drooling and all this stuff, it's so hot. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's not a habanero, my bad, dude. That's a Reaper." And I was like, "What? What? Hold up.
Yeah.
You better take a bite of that right now. I'm gonna throw some hands, and I'm gonna lose. But we're gonna throw hands if you don't take a bite of that right now."
No,
dude, I took a bite of that, and I was like walking down, like in between desks and stuff like that.
I have a coworker.
My ears hurt.
I have a coworker that like grows Reapers and stuff like that, and one time he brought in like I think they're like cheese puffs that had like Carolina Reaper or ghost pepper or something on them, like flavored, and I had one, and oh my god, dude, you can feel it in your stomach, and like I immediately had to go to the bathroom, and like that it's not fun coming out either. Oh my god, it was terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it'll be a good time. It'll be funny.
Yeah, I think it'll be funny. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. It'll be like the raw egg that you ate because of YouTube video.
Hey, speaking of which, shout out to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jerome Vaz. Everyone go
see the
watch.
Link below. Where do you want me to point?
Link below in the description.
I'll put
if you're watching this podcast, you're probably already there. What else? What else do we need to tell the people? Is that the end of our first episode?
How long have we recorded for?
I don't know, like
Okay.
40 minutes maybe.
I feel like that's a pretty good amount.
That's a pretty long episode. But
Yeah.
all right, then do you want to sign us out? You want me to sign us out?
I'll go ahead and sign us out.
Okay.
I'm going to copy you for next time because I'm really bad at this stuff, right?
Thank you to everyone for listening to the first episode of the Barely Indian podcast. If you guys have ideas for topics that you want me and Neesh to talk about, put them in the comments below or send them to us. However, you can mail it to us.
What a good outro.
Listen to this podcast anywhere you can get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. What are other podcast platforms? Stitcher. Or if you want to watch the video version, watch the video version on youtube.com/Jerome Vaz. And yeah, thanks for listening to us. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.